Well, welcome back to our questions and answers from our retreat on the 7 factors of enlightenment. And I hope that the quality, the broadcast quality, is better today. Apparently yesterday it was rather diluted, kind of a watercolorish mush of sound and sights. We re-uploaded that yesterday's Q&A in high def. So if you missed it, you can see it today or anytime since last night. And today I'm presuming that the quality of the stream is better, and maybe you can tell our people in the background if it is the case. Then on the chat you can notify that the quality is good, medium, or poor. So without further ado, then let's go with the first question. Pia.
Ajahn, our first question is from Anonymous in Marlborough, New Zealand. Because there is no self making the effort, etc., what causes can be put into place so that the energy takes place without it becoming a self? I am guessing the energy is more like a courage to renounce defilements.
Well, this idea of the self, we can simplify it. It's not something that you get rid of. The self is not something you get rid of, and it can't take life again if you treat it the wrong way. It never existed, and it's not something you can get rid of because it never existed. So you just go about the operations of making decisions and determinations and putting effort in just as you normally would. It's always been an unnecessary X factor in a formula. It's there used to be scientists used to have to talk about the activities in space of the traveling of light through space and so forth by inventing something called the ether. They needed some medium for light to travel through, and it turns out, after all, there is no ether and there is no need for it. Light just travels through space. And so you just took out the ether factor, and everything worked just like it did before, because there was never a need for ether. There never was any ether. There's also a funny named chemical called phlogiston, which had something to do with rusting or something like that. And the phlogiston was there, and I think it made iron heavier when it rusted or something like that. It was phlogiston got added, and then it turns out there is no phlogiston. There never was. So the sense of I, is a theory, and we can dispense with it. But at the same time, it's very clear that we make efforts, we make determinations, we make resolutions, and we learn things, and things become more clear to us, and we progress in the direction of emotional clarification and well-being. All of these things are what we're talking about in Buddhism. There's nothing really that strange about it. What is unique about the Buddhism is that he is advocating for an exceptional level of emotional refinement and clarity, realism, a quality of well-being that it never subsides. And I think in the West, partly because of Christianity, I think where you are born a sinner and there's nothing you can do about it, but if Jesus or God sees fit, he may lift some of it off of you or whatever. And then you have modern psychology, which has no belief in supernormal psychological health. It's primarily to deal with extreme neurosis or something like that. So this is from a far different time and a different place, and we're introducing this into the modern West, and the idea that extraordinary well-being can be attained by systematic practice and effort, and some basic understandings about your relationship to reality around you. And we shouldn't introduce too much mysticism around this non-self thing. It's just that we used to think that atoms were indivisible billiard balls of the universe, and then it turns out they're divisible as well. So it's just a concept that is in some ways useful, but it really doesn't correspond to reality as it is. And so we're, as mature adults, we're questioning this whole idea, the imaginary construct of the self, and one can feel great relief to see through it as an illusion. And restructure, it doesn't mean that somehow we don't exist. It means that we just had a misunderstanding about the essential, core self idea. Okay, so Pia, let's go on to our next question.
Next question is from the live chat from GCKM01. Can the Four Noble Truths help inform why many have complex trauma? And within the teachings around the Eightfold Path and the 7 factors, might there be any teachings around understanding and healing trauma?
Yeah, trauma is quite a popular word these days, and recognition of this traumatized condition, which many people have, is I think it's very important. Obviously, trauma is not something that only happens in the modern times. I think when we look at history and the nature of the brutality of history, and trauma must have been very common amongst all kinds of individuals. If trauma is how you interpret events in reality, it's not really what happens to you; it's how you perceive that it happened to you. So you see two people come through a very violent situation in a war, and one is traumatized by it, and the other one is not. So trauma is kind of your orientation to reality. And in order to overcome that trauma, then you have to reorient. And there's a number of cases in the suttas where a person has had dreadful things happen to them and has driven them right out of their minds. And they're wandering around in what we would call they become what we would say in modern times as a street person. They're disheveled, they're living under a tree, they can't keep their hygiene together, they appear to be mad, or insane rather, and they encountered the Buddha, and the Buddha coaches them a little bit on regaining their mindfulness, and they come out of it. And so we see that people had traumatic experiences, drove them out of their minds, and they recovered. And so trauma is really a very important, interesting topic of our time. All kinds of underlying, the symptoms come up with trauma. One is addiction. So people who are traumatized quite often exhibit addictive behavior, quite often to relieve the pain of the traumatic situation, and so forth. And so if you can address this underlying suffering, then that secondary behavior of addictions and so forth can drop away. So the Four Noble Truths, yes, can address this. Religious experience in general has been used in most of history as the cure for what ails you. I think the Carl Jung, the psychoanalyst, he proposed that virtually anybody who came to him who was 35 or over and had problems, that the answer for them was actually religion, was the answer for them, some sort of spiritual or religious engagement. That why earlier than that you can have just little issues with your parents or things like that, but after 35 it's usually, in almost all cases, it's a lack of religious vision or a vision of life, a committed vision of life. and this seems to be the case in history. It seems to have solved a lot of issues. So Buddhism is an offering of a vision of life. The Four Noble Truths are a view of life. Buddhism, by the way, we don't have the word religion. This is an English word, and apparently it's from the Latin to ligare, religion, ligare, and ligare is like the same as ligament, or ties bones together, that which binds the bones together. And religion is something which you bind yourself to. You bind yourself to this, to a view. In Buddhism, these are called ditthis, or views. And the opening of the Pali Canon is actually a list of 62 possible views, which is said to be exhaustive. Like, it's basically every kind of view you could take about reality. And at the time, of course, they had what is fairly common these days, a nihilistic, materialistic views, where you basically arrive out of nothing, of material, and when you die, it's over. And there is no consequences or particular meaning to it. That's one of the 62 views, and there's all kinds of other variations on it. So it's a map of the various kind of views that a human could possibly think up. And if you look over Greek philosophy and the various religions of the world, it's pretty hard to find anything outside of those 62 possibilities. And these are just views. And what the Buddha would say is also that nobody has no view. Like, there aren't any people around without a view. You all have some view of reality. If you're rejecting religious ideas, rejecting philosophical ideas, that's a view in itself, and it's an attitude in itself which you're forming an identity around. So these Four Noble Truths, if you engage with them, and if you understand them, and if you imbibe them, and you immerse in them, they have a curative effect. They allow you to transcend the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune which exists in life. Everybody has failures and humiliations and wishes to be admired and successful, and it doesn't happen, and all kinds of terrible physical ailments come to people, etc. And the Four Noble Truths are designed to deal with that and to allow you to transcend it, to be above these things, not to be swayed or cause suffering through these things. So yes, it's a medicine and a therapy, more or less an ultimate therapy. So yes, it can deal with trauma, and it deals with it by counteracting hostility, negative feelings, aversive feelings, by learning to create either non-ill will or positive goodwill. So the systematic practice of good kindliness and goodwill for oneself and others is one of the medicines. It's like physiotherapy is for the body. It's a type of medicine. And then most of the grave suffering is gone when you get over the the aversive part of life, the anger and the negative attitudes. That's the one that's most painful. And then all you have left is the greed type, the wanting, craving stuff, which is less painful and less problematic, but still, if you want to be happy, truly non-traumatized, you have to get over that as well. And various practices of reflection to learn to be aloof from these cravings and desires and feel the freedom that comes from that, the sense of wholeness and contentment that comes from not feeling that you must win the lottery or you must get this or get that. You suddenly feel at profound peace, and you realize how foolish those cravings and wants are. And then the other level is just dullness and confusion, which is called delusion, avidya. And that requires a good deal of reflection and solitary stillness and practice of the mind, directing the mind to do what you wish it to do and not to do what you do not wish it to do. Your mind does things that you don't want it to do. You can see in trauma, people suddenly flinch in the middle of an experience because they interpret a sound as threatening to them, or they have anxiety attacks when there's nothing to be feared. They lose the capacity to breathe even in a social situation, and they don't want that to happen, but it seems to be out of their control. So meditation is in fact to delve deeply into this and to bring these things under control, and so you don't have these automatic reactions anymore, that you overcome these things. And so this is obviously a lot of work in life, but it's very rewarding work. And in fact, we would say that it's ultimately the real work. All the rest is just secondary to it. The real work is to overcome the suffering and the potential for suffering. I would say that part of what Buddhism is also to give you some sort of preventive medicine against trauma, so that you're not, if you happen to have a nice life up to a certain point and then bad things happen, then you'll be traumatized later in life. And Buddhism prepares you for these kind of events so that you're not traumatized by these events. You've worked through it ahead of time and exercised that, so you're able to deal with this. You have resilience and flexibility and the right attitude so that you're not traumatized by these things. Okay, let's go on to the next question, Pia.
Next question is from Upasika Rebecca in Berlin, Germany. Your teachings on right effort have been incredibly valuable in my daily life, especially to help stop habits of unhelpful mind states, though I still seem to struggle with keeping a consistent meditation practice. How might I develop virya for my sitting practice to stay consistent when I'm not participating in retreats?
Probably more than virya, there's another word, adhitthana, which is determination, kind of resolution, to make a schedule and keep to it. We're in a world that is very difficult because there's so many things at our fingertips. Easy entertainment and distraction is just at our fingertips now. So a lot of people are reporting this. They can't. Some people who used to read books all the time can't even read a book anymore because it's just too easy to allow a kind of a series of videos play through your mind, and it's more like passive. This is what television did as well when it came in. It hijacked the book market to some degree. Just lie on a couch, and whatever was on the channel just played over you. And it weakened the capacity just to create your own inner theater with books and so forth. And the internet is kind of that on steroids, is television on steroids. So this is the case. And so one has to say, I have to make some clear determinations, and I have to arrange for the physical space where I'm in a physical space where I can't just reach my hand over to my phone or something like this. So you have to do a little bit of psychological planning. You have to make a schedule about what you're going to do with your hours in the day. What will you be doing at 7 p.m. tomorrow? What? If you don't know what you're going to be doing at 7 p.m., it's likely that you're going to just go for the weakest thing, the easiest thing, So people who, are trying to diet and, they take refuge in the fridge and so forth, there's all kinds of strategies for them. They can't have chocolate cake in the fridge. You just can't have it. If you to get the ice cream, you have to go out in the rain and walk 6 miles and get it. But if it's in the fridge or in the freezer, then it's just too easy. So you have to, the nature of human motivation, your own motivation. So you have to make some clear plans and arrange the physical space so it's not easy to just drift away. And you might make an arrangement with somebody else. This is how diet clubs work as well. You arrange to meet at a certain time. You're gonna both meditate, or all 6 of you are going to meditate at 7 p.m. You're all going to meditate together, even though you're in different countries, etc. So these are the strategies that psychology comes up with, that human common sense comes up with. And so Buddhism is like transcendental, it's supernormal and everything, but it relies on these similar structures as well. The ordained Sangha is just for that purpose. It's an ordained community where we all agree to make determinations and make efforts in a certain restricted lifestyle. And we do that because it's easier. It's easier than try to manage it out in the world where you can just make your own rules anytime. So it's a little bit of an enlightenment club, the life of the ordained Sangha is an enlightenment club that you join. And you join it knowing that you join it because you're not always have a lot of strength of will, but somebody else does, and you have to report to them and note your failures and so forth. So you can set that up in your own life somehow with some friends who can say, yep, I blew it again. I just watched 1-minute videos for 7 hours there and didn't manage to get down on the cushion and so forth. And then they can say, now, come on, I did it, and we agreed you do it too. Now let's come on, step up. So this is how you do it. Simple things like that. But get serious about how to restructure your life and just invest in these things, because they really work. They make things a lot easier than just spontaneously deciding, oh, maybe I should meditate now. And often weeks will go by when nothing happens. So that's how you do it. Okay, let's go on.
Next question is from the live chat from Lake in Portland, Oregon, United States. Dear Ajahn, would you speak a bit more about the preliminary conditions necessary for developing the 7 factors of enlightenment?
Well, preliminary conditions are always that you investigate the basics of the Eightfold Path, right view, and then, of course, the right intention, right intention, right speech, right effort, right action, and right livelihood. These are the preliminaries to the 7 factors of enlightenment. So without sila, without virtuous behavior and careful guarding of the speech and actions, then it's very doubtful that you can move on to develop the higher conditions of the mind. Also, well, this very retreat is a preliminary to the 7 factors. Understand what the 7 factors are. Yesterday we talked about the need for seclusion, dispassion, and cessation of the burdens of life, And so these are requirements that help form the basis of this. But you need quiet time. I mean, this is a noisy, frivolous, superactive type of world that we live in. And the wiser type just says, I'm not a child anymore. I don't want to go to Disneyland. I want to go to a quiet place in the forest. And I want to clarify my inner workings and so forth. And this is how I will lay the groundwork. And I don't want to be around violent, negative, untrustworthy people. I don't want that company. I'm not that desperate. I want to stay away from people who are drunk all the time or stoned all the time. I can't be around people like that. So you are establishing yourself in the preliminaries to the development of the 7 factors of enlightenment. So until one starts to feel that need to move to the margins of society and to associate only with those who have refined types of temperaments, who understand generosity and kindness and clarity, the joys of seclusion, the vigorous demand that you make on your mind to retrain it to benefit yourself. These are the things that are preliminaries to the development of the 7 factors of enlightenment. Yeah.
Next question is from Upasika Jodika from Elmshorn, Germany. Dear Ajahn Sona, when it comes to mindfulness of the mind, 4 foundations of mindfulness, and one isn't sure or not exactly clear what state of mind one is in, or identifies the wrong state, i.e., sometimes one feels angry, but the main root of that anger is grief. Can one do something about that? If one isn't clear, it often leads to endless thinking. Should one, quote, let go for some time or investigate further?
Yeah, it's getting to know yourself. I mean, this is Socrates' injunction, know thyself. This is the wisdom traditions all say it in one form or another, know thyself. So you start to be able to see when you are in a negative state, a hindrance, when you are in an aversive condition. Most people they often attribute their moods to the world. So the traffic jam made them mad. The staff meeting made them mad. The fact that the water had rust in it made them mad. And then they go to a retreat and they sit down and everything is just fine in a nice quiet room and they're still mad. And then they realize, oh my God, it's me. I am mad at the world. And I'm thinking the world is making me mad, but I am mad. And so this is why we meditate. It's like we sit down and realize there's nothing, no stimulant in the environment that could explain my mood, and yet I'm angry or grieving or something like this. By the way, there is a whole school which uses something called labeling. I think it's primarily from the Burmese mindfulness and Vipassana type schools, where you label things when they come into your mind. Anger, thinking. Maybe a dog is barking. You name these things. However, you don't find that literal instruction in the teachings of the Buddha. What you find is knowing, not labeling and not naming, but knowing. So you know you're angry or not. You know you're greedy or not. By the time you start formulating words for what's going on, by the time you get a right word for it, it's already gone and something else is there. So it becomes an entanglement in itself. And many people do not know that they're angry. They are angry, but it's such a normal condition of their state of mind. They've been angry since they were 3 years old or 2 years old. I mean, a 1-year-old can be angry, right? So they don't know what it's like not to be. Sometimes, people go on a holiday to a different culture that's really relaxed, and they for the first time themselves, they relax and they realize, oh my God, I've been uptight my whole life. Or they take a drug, which allows them to be all smiley and uninhibited and loving and stuff. Or even alcohol does that sometimes, and they would not have blundered into that except by those reasons. Then they realize, oh, well, I must have been angry all this time, because that's what it feels like not to be angry. So that's what meditation is really to seek it out and to deliberately learn how to create non-anger and, in fact, go beyond non-anger to goodwill, to loving kindness, and learn to know what that tastes like. Because it's not an idea, it's a taste. It has an emotional, it has a feeling tone with it. So we have to spend a lot of time introspectively. We have to be looking inside of us all the time. What's going on? Joy. This sure. Everybody says joy tastes really good. This couldn't be joy, So, yeah, it's getting a taste for it and setting up the conditions where you can get a taste for it. Perhaps surrounding yourself with uplifting people or language in order to talk you into it. And then once you get a taste for it, enjoy it for a while, but then write it down very, very carefully to make sure that you believe that it actually happened. Sometimes when these things fade away, you think, well, maybe it didn't really happen. Maybe I really wasn't joyful, But write it down, note in your truth notebook that I really was joyful and it really felt this way, and so forth. But you become an expert in the qualities of your own inner life, and you spend a lot of time carefully looking at it. Yeah, and that's what mindfulness is. Can you identify negative mental states, neutral mental states, and positive mental states? Can you name them? Yeah. Until you can, it's going to be difficult. If you can't name them, if you don't recognize them, then it's going to be tough. So you really have to spend some time doing this. Yeah.
Our next question is from the live chat from Maria in Seattle, Washington, United States. The terms awakening and enlightenment are sometimes used interchangeably, and sometimes they seem to signify two different things. If you could clarify this point a bit, I would appreciate it.
Yeah, light arose is like in the early Dhammacakka, one of the earliest suttas. There's a description of what the experience of enlightenment is, and light arose, and that shouldn't be taken too literally. Sometimes it's literalized as a kind of like you saw some light, but it occurs in other religious traditions, and also in science as well. Like you suddenly understood something, and we call that light. What was in the dark is suddenly now clear, and you see it. Awakening is the same kind of thing. When you awake from a dream, you come out of this kind of false reality of dreamland where things that are literally impossible happen, and into a world of lucidity, an awakening. You awaken sometimes out of a nightmare. So lots of people have described portions of their life as a nightmare, a terrible period of time, prison and wars and bad relationships and bad jobs, and just as a nightmare. And so they very commonly go to this language of getting out, awakening from a nightmare. But most normal people are actually in something of a dream which is filled with possibilities of great fear and dreadful experiences, because of the way they're seeing. Their mind is lazy and uninformed, and so as one becomes enlightened, then you awaken from the dream of ordinary life. The dream of ordinary life is full of a potential anxiety and fear. One of the sayings, I think it's Mark Twain, but I've discovered that it has origins in the philosopher Montaigne as well. That I'm an old man. I've had many terrible troubles, most of which never happened. And so the dream life is fraught with anxieties about what could happen. Terrible, bad things can happen. The enlightened life awakens from that, out of that dream of all the terrible things that can and have happened, etc. You awaken from that. So those are two ways of just spiritual talk. And these are similes, of course, but they're trying to refer to what it is for an ordinary person when you turn a light on and you can see, and when you awaken from a dream and you're lucid and awake. These are two radical different experiences. Yeah.
Next question is from Rajesh in Fremont, California, United States. Dear Ajahn, I find it easier to cultivate enlightenment factors and dismiss hindrances when practicing during the day. At night, it's much harder, with weird dreams and emotions, such as disembodied fear, which is persistent, especially in solitude. Any advice?
Yeah, and I frequently give this advice, is that no thinking between about 10 o'clock at night, well, the moment you go to bed, and until you've not only woken up, but had breakfast and tea or coffee, whatever your thing is. You're going to have to train yourself that the mind goes into a very weakened state in the middle of the night where everything is terrifying and complicated and overwhelming, and it's just a totally bad time to think. And you can train yourself. He says, oh yes, right, this is the night I'm not allowed to think. I'm not allowed to have this terrible problem because I don't trust my mind. So your mind is lying to you and telling you terrible stories. Your mind, you yourself have become something of an idiot in the night, and you don't want to talk to an idiot. You want to sleep because the idiot has nothing good to say. So you refuse to talk to that fool. Your mind at night has lost 30 or 40 IQ points. You're babbling, fearful, and so forth, and you want nothing to do with that person. You want to sleep. People just don't know. It's a simple fix, is that they think, well, I was up worrying at 2 a.m. Oh my God, I'd never got to sleep and everything like that. How do you feel now? Well, it's not as bad as I thought. And so you're like, get the clue. Don't think at night. Sleep instead. The moment you wake up, don't allow any kind of thought process, and just go back to sleep. Dismiss it. And it works. But you really have to practice that systematically for months at a time, because you get out of the habit of talking to a fool in the middle of the night. Yeah.
Next question is from Bhavani. How to know that I have mastered the 7 factors of enlightenment?
This is something that, is a personal experience, intuitive experience, and one that feels very light, extremely light of being, and it is not subject to any kind of decline. So you're basically in a state of joy, ease, tranquility, or deep silence throughout the entire day and into the night as well. And this is unvarying. This is non-regressive, unvarying, and it doesn't rely on circumstance. So that's a very advanced accomplishment, and one should always not, some people want to overestimate their attainments. Somehow they really want to be enlightened, but it's very dangerous to overestimate your attainments. It is not dangerous to underestimate. So always underestimate your progress. It's much better to want more. More serenity, more joy, more stillness. Keep asking for more. By the way, you'll hear schools of meditation and this kind of spiritual talk where you're already enlightened. Don't make effort because the effort is useless because you're already enlightened and all this kind of stuff. That is completely 180 degrees away from the teachings of the historical Buddha. Effort is relentlessly advocated more than anything else. It is a matter of effort. You must make effort to come to the stage of freedom. You're not already free. No, you're not already enlightened. No, you're not. No, no, no. Stop that. That's stupid. So stop that. You're not. And so get real here. You're going to have to work at this. And the degree that you work at it skillfully, you will get the results. And you'll stop saying stupid things like that. Okay.
Next question from the live chat is from Sumana in Whitecourt, Alberta, Canada. Ajahn, thinking of working with the hindrances and wondering if you would speak a little to what I've heard referred to as the gratification triad, how to use that as an investigative method for repeating patterns of negative thoughts.
What? Let me hear that again. Gratification triad.
Triad.
The danger, the attraction, the danger, and the escape, I think, is what she's talking about.
Okay.
Sure.
Well, it's just positive conditioning. You have to use every psychological trick in the book to give yourself rewards when you're doing the right thing, and to reward yourself for not doing the wrong thing and not thinking the wrong way. You keep using good words for yourself. Very good. That's good. Now, and you can even give yourself little gifts. Okay, you get a cup of coffee. We're just strategizing to encourage the mind and give it little rewards and to give it encouragement and not to use negativity unwisely. The stick has to be used very, very, very carefully, but primarily encouragement and loving kindness is the basis for moving on and reconditioning ourselves. And it's something like when you look back on how do people learn the piano. I used to teach music, and students would come in and they would play their piece, and then they make a mistake, and then they go, oh darn, and I teach them, don't go, oh darn, you made a mistake because your finger doesn't know where to go. That's all. You're just training your finger. It's like training a dog. You don't get all hostile with the dog. And people do. They get all upset and hostile at the dog. The dog just doesn't know what to do. Your finger doesn't know what to do. Your mind doesn't know what to do. So all you do is systematically explain and clearly repeat what to do, and then it will do it. And there's no need for anything but positive emotion in this. There's no need for anything else because disappointment, negative stuff doesn't help at all. Doesn't help you learn because this is simply it's a repetitive learning process. Meditation and Dharma is just repetitive learning to learn to practice in the right way. Will get you the results, and it's not hoping, wishing, and wanting. It's just, did you do your repetitions of letting go of anger, fear, and so forth today? Did you let it go? And did you change your mind to the other alternatives in a very deliberate way? Most people don't realize they do have a choice. They don't realize they could change their mind. It seems that they believe they have to respond to the circumstances of the time. And if it's something bad happens, they have to be sad or mad. And there's no choice, but you don't. The liberation is this realizing that you have a choice about how to respond to things. And you don't have to choose negative mental states. And when you're really certain about that, you confidently do it. And the more you do it, the easier it is. And pretty soon it takes on a life of its own. It's pretty well there. And it becomes almost effortless. So these are the ways of rewarding yourself as well. This is the gratification. You get positive feedback from doing this. And most people don't know they're allowed to do this. This is like discovering how to print money. It's like, but I'm not allowed to print money, am I? Well, no, true. But you can print positive emotions without needing the world to change. You can print off positive emotions, all that you can spend, actually. Yeah.
Next question from the live chat is from Rick. How are the 10 parameis related to the 7 factors of enlightenment?
Well, that's a complex question. First of all, I have given a number of talks on the 10 parameis. Did I give 10 talks? I forget. Yeah, complete, exhaustive talks on the 10 parameis. The 10 parameis are not actually a list in the suttas. The Buddha doesn't rhyme off the 10 parameis. He does list the 7 factors of enlightenment in the suttas. The 10 parameis are a development over time, usually in the commentaries. They occur as individual parameis. I should say that parami is a perfection of virtues, like patience is a perfection of virtue, determination is a perfection of virtue, loving kindness is a perfection, mindfulness, all these kind of various attributes are developed and become perfections. Virya, the energy itself, is a perfection. And so you see some crossovers in these 7 factors of enlightenment that are. So virya, for instance, is a parami, a perfection of character, and also in the 7 factors. Equanimity is upekkha, is also a parami, one of the 10 perfections, and it's also a greatly. It is the 7th of the 7 factors. So you can see some nice crossovers there, but they weren't. They weren't. The 10 paramis were not systematically listed. These are later developments, and you'll find them. It has to do with schools of Buddhism. So you'll find, particularly in the Mahayana, 6 paramis, and they're not identical to the 10 paramis. In the Theravada, interestingly enough, we have 10 paramis, 10 perfections. And then there are schools where there's only 4 paramis and so forth. These are the primary things. I think in the New Testament, charity, love, charity, and what, forbearance or something like this, and the greatest of these is charity. So that's like a kind of a list of 3 benefits. Any of you ex-Christians tell me what the, anybody? Love, charity, and something or other. I'm sure a bunch of you are in the game show. You're putting up your hand. I know the answer to the 3 things. What are the 3 things?
Faith.
Love, hope.
Faith,
Hope.
love,
Faith, hope, and charity.
and the greatest of these is love.
And the greatest of these is love. I think the translation is charity. Faith, hope, and charity. So, you have these variations in schools of philosophy, etc. And so the 10 paramis are very interesting, and you can find them independently, but as a single list, it's a somewhat later development. I find it very interesting and very good. There's some very nice commentaries on it as well. But the 7 factors are a unified list that the Buddha himself taught and frequently throughout the suttas. Yeah.
Ajahn, our final question today will be from the live chat from The Tao is Nameless. How do we know we are in mindfulness while doing everyday activities?
Well, there are a number of different types of mindfulness, and there is mindfulness of a task. By the way, I think that there's been some exaggeration in this idea of mindfulness, a mindfulness of washing the dishes or mindfulness of sweeping the floor. I mean, certainly it's a way of grounding yourself in the present and not letting the mind run around by being fully present to sweeping or washing the dishes and so forth. But mindfulness is fully described in the seventh factor of the Eightfold Path, and of course it is also in the first factor of the seven factors of enlightenment. And it is primarily the four foundations of your body itself. You're mindful of the body, but in a certain meaningful context. You're not simply aware of your body. Doesn't tell you anything. You're not just aware of your body, aware of feelings, aware of mind, aware of Dhamma categories, to the extent necessary for the overcoming of grasping and aversion to the world. So there's a recurring phrase in the four foundations of mindfulness that the purpose of this is to deliver you from the hindrances, the five hindrances, the negative, problematic aspects of the mind. That's why you're doing the mindfulness. It's to deliver you from these things. It's not merely paying attention. A lot of people pay attention to things, but what does it do for them? A cat pays attention to a mouse. He waits by the mouse hole. He's very mindful, but that's not our kind of mindfulness. A bank robber is highly attentive. When he's in there, is completely alive and attentive. A mountain climber, you can imagine free climbing. You're hundreds of feet above the ground, and you're no ropes and so forth. You can bet they're mindful. But it's the wrong kind of mindfulness. It's not liberating them from anything. So mindfulness is one tool in the box of skills that you have called the Eightfold Path. And it needs direction, and it needs meaningful context. You are mindful in order to what? In order to what? It's not for its own sake. It's in order to overcome aversion, so greed and anger. Primarily, this is just a summary. Greed and anger is a summary for the five hindrances. You're to overcome the five hindrances. And then mindfulness has delivered you. It is to deliver you to a realistic idea of the nature of the body, to the nature of feelings and the problems that arise from painful, negative, or painful, neutral, and pleasant feelings. It is to understand and get wisdom about these things. So mindfulness is the servant of wisdom. It's the servant of wisdom. It's not a standalone thing. It isn't in itself merely beneficial. It's only a tool for generating a wise attitude which relieves you from suffering. So that's the purpose of this mindfulness practice. And it's very, very misrepresented in general, that somehow it's just watching, and it's just magic of watching and being here and so forth. No. It's at the service of a philosophy of life, a vision of life, which delivers you from emotional distress. Yeah. Okay, so we will wind it up today, and at 7 p.m. Pacific time tonight, that is in just about 2 hours, you will have the third talk in the series of 6 talks on the 7 factors of enlightenment. And we will be back again tomorrow with another Q&A on any questions you have on this particular subject of the retreat of 7 factors of enlightenment, or any of the factors of enlightenment. There are all kinds of questions people have, but try to keep them somewhat on the topic of the retreat. Yeah.